One guy gave ChatGPT-4 access to all his personal finance apps, and it quickly figured out how he could save about $215.
The resident experience being smarter and more efficient, more effective, so they utilize less energy.
Have you ever stopped to think, could there be a possibility that all our actions and activities are being controlled by some entity out there? Like the idea of free will could just be an illusion designed to distract us from ever being inquisitive enough to find out the truth about our existence. Well, there might be just a slight chance that you might be right on track with that thought. There have been theories and hypotheses that seem to support this thought. In fact, some of the most brilliant scientists have actually given it a thought. In this video, we'll explore different ideas about this hypothesis and the possible scenarios surrounding each one. Let's dive right into it. Number 1. The simulation hypothesis. The simulation hypothesis is the idea that our reality is a simulated one, with the possibility of being created by a technologically advanced civilization that might have existed before us. It's a thought that's been around for centuries, materializing in various schools of thought and religion. But in recent years, it started gaining renewed attention even from the scientific community as the power of computer technology has increased exponentially. This increase is opening the door to new discoveries and possibilities, hinting that more could be possible than we can imagine. There are several arguments in favor of the simulation hypothesis, with prominent figures like Elon Musk believing in it. The first is that it's simply a matter of time before a civilization develops the technology to create realistic simulations of reality. Thereby, we might be in a simulation of past civilizations. Another is that our own universe exhibits some strange features that could be better explained if it were a simulation. Despite the lack of concrete evidence, the simulation hypothesis remains a popular topic of discussion among scientists and philosophers. It's a fascinating thought experiment that forces us to question the nature of reality itself. This raises some questions that challenge the essence of life itself, birthing questions like could there be other simulations running parallel to ours, more like the idea of parallel universes. Do we actually have control over our actions, or are we just responding to instructions? Will there come a time when the simulation is turned off, sweeping everything into oblivion? The simulation hypothesis proves to be a profound and thought-provoking idea. It raises a number of philosophical questions about the nature of reality and our place in it. While we may never know for sure whether or not we're living in a simulation, the possibility is certainly intriguing. Number 2. Mathematical elements in nature. We all know that science thrives not on probability, but precision. 1 plus 1 is always equal to 2 and can be replicated in any scenario. Such constants that have been identified in nature have helped push the narrative that our existence has to be very much intentional, designed by some superior power. Take for instance what we might call the fine-tuning of the universe. The laws of physics and the constants of nature seem to be finely tuned for the existence of life. Every element and component is carefully stacked to ensure that the species thrives. For instance, if the strength of the electromagnetic force were slightly different, then atoms would not be able to form and stars would not be able to shine. This precision is difficult to explain without resorting to the idea of a simulator who designed the universe specifically to support life. Number 3. If at all we're in a simulation, then who's the simulator? Ideas have surfaced to answer this question, hinting at our being just a computer simulation of our more advanced future selves. As to why we might exist, we might just be a mirror for this advanced civilization to look into the past and relive certain scenarios as a way to improve the present. On the other hand, we might be a more religious route and buy into the idea of a supreme being who controls our every action. But could this being be in isolation or be part of a broader community? These are questions we might never get answers to. Number 4. Could the idea of the afterlife be a hint at another simulation? For all we know, we might be transitioning from one kind of simulation to another after we die, and what kind of simulation we transition into might be determined by how we performed in this one. A classic religious postulation, right? Just maybe. Now let's think of life as a machine learning algorithm, just as we have in modern day AI, operating on the laws of reward and punishment, which later births an efficient system via trial and error. One that fails to learn eventually is deemed unfit. What if we're like these AI models, just in a test environment, waiting to be redeployed to the real thing if we pass the test? Well, these are just thoughts. Number 5. If there's a simulation and a simulator, what are the chances there's only one simulation? This idea tends to support and push the idea of parallel universes. Like, there could be another you in multiple other universes living outcomes of different choices. Funny as it might seem, we can call this a possibility of us being guinea pigs in a giant laboratory testing the consequences of different actions or decisions that you might have made. Maybe as a means to learn and inform their own decisions. Just as there are infinite choices you might have made in your lifetime, there could be an infinite realities. Or maybe there could be one superior reality against which other realities could be measured. Considering how central we believe we are in the grand scheme of things, could there be a chance that we're at the center of it all? Or are we just one in many possibilities? Number 6. Is free will an illusion? On a daily basis, humans make decisions and go down lanes based on what they believe to be free will. This could be the door to endless possibilities, which could also make or mar you if you happen to pick the wrong path. But have you ever wondered, what if everything has been pre-programmed? What if your decision isn't exactly yours, but a code somewhere which has been designed to make you act in line with certain changes and stimuli? This might seem like a bogus imagination, but you can imagine, what if robotic vacuum cleaners have some kind of consciousness? Isn't it possible that they might believe that responding to clean off dirt is their decision and not just some lines of code performing tasks it's been designed for? You can also think of this as humans being NPCs in a game, which if any deviation should occur, could result in very dire consequences or even a distortion of the whole simulation. This will lead us to the next big question, which could be quite bogus coming from an ethical perspective. Number 7. Do our actions have any real consequences in a simulation? Whether or not actions matter in a simulated reality is a complex question with no easy answer. On one hand, if our reality is a simulation, then it means that our choices and actions are not truly free. The simulators could have programmed us to behave in certain ways, or they could be manipulating our environment to produce a desired outcome. In this case, it would be very difficult to argue that our actions have any real meaning or consequence. On the other hand, if our reality is a simulation, it's still a reality that we experience as real. We feel emotions, we make choices, and we live our lives as if they mattered. From our own perspectives, our actions do matter. We are responsible for our choices and the consequences of those choices. Whether or not the actions matter in a simulated reality is ultimately a matter of perspective. If we view our reality as a simulation, then we may be less likely to take our actions seriously. However, if we view our reality as real, then our actions will continue to matter regardless of whether or not they're predetermined by a simulator. Number 8. If we're in a simulation, why are we allowed to create superior intelligence to ours? Over the past few months, we've seen an exponential increase in the development of artificial intelligence, which is projected to surpass human intelligence by a great main in the future. If we're already simulations, why are we allowed to do this? Well, you could think of it as us being just one phase in the grand scheme of things. Maybe we're allowed to do this as a way to grow the simulation into scenarios that are way beyond our own imagination. Also, being able to create other intelligent beings with the potential of taking over entirely from humans, birthing a new form of civilization, could be the evidence that we need to prove we're in fact a simulation. What are the chances that we're not the creation of another older civilization which has served a purpose to these simulators? Number 9. Is escaping the simulation an option? If we're living in a simulation, the chances of escaping it are likely very slim. The simulators would likely have taken steps to prevent us from escaping, such as limiting the speed of information in the simulation, or making it impossible for us to access the underlying code. However, there may be some ways to escape the simulation, even if they are very unlikely to succeed. One way would be to develop an AI that's so powerful it can break free of the simulation. Another way would be to find a way to access the underlying code of the simulation and make changes to it. Natural occurrences like black holes serving as defects in the system could also play a role in escaping the simulation. If a black hole were to collide with the edge of the simulation, it could create a tear in the fabric of reality and allow us to escape. However, this is also very unlikely to happen. These are hypothetical thoughts, and we'd love to hear what you might be thinking about this topic in the comments. That'll be all for this video, and we'll see you in the next one.